world population is rising steadily and is projected to reach 9 billion by 2050. Inevitably, rising energy demands and a consumption-intensive lifestyle have left us with a critical resource crunch, with spiraling energy and food prices as well as acute water shortages. The dependence of global industrialized countries on fossil fuels has grave economic, environmental and geopolitical consequences. With nations pitted against each other, there's bound to be a mad scramble for resources. Access to cheap energy has become essential to the functioning of modern economies. However, the uneven distribution of energy supplies among countries and the critical need for energy has led to significant vulnerabilities. The resources needed to provide for a population of this size are immense. Rapid urbanization will lead to sharp increases in per capita emissions if no action is taken. Climate change in India and neighboring countries represents an additional stress on food supplies, ecological security, and socio-economic progress, especially with cities growing at a tremendous pace. In the light of these challenges, what is it that modern society can do? The alternative is a transition from global economies dependent on oil and gas to low-carbon solutions with a diverse mix of energy sources and supplies. Alternate sources of energy like solar, wind, and geothermal have an immense potential that is yet to be tapped to its fullest. Renewable sources of energy can be the answer to the impending energy crisis.
Difficult to imagine a day without electricity? More than half of India's 138 million rural households live in darkness, beyond the reach of grid electricity.
तो बहुत दिक्कत था, बिजली नहीं था तो बहुत दिक्कत है। अगर आँख नहीं रहेगा तो दिखाई नहीं देगा, इस प्रकार बिजली भी है, आँखें के जैसा।
In the coal belt of India, where the air is thick with coal dust, there is a glimmer of hope as two young minds are igniting a quiet revolution in their quest for light.
मैंने जब यहाँ आया तो मुझे लगा कि हम जैसे पढ़े लिखे लोग रहते हुए भी इस गांव के लिए कुछ नहीं दे सके तो बेकार है। मैं दूसरे को खुशी के लिए मैंने सोचने लगा कि मैं गांव के बारे में कुछ करूं।
A long forgotten tree lies at the root of this experiment. A tree that holds the secret of electricity for this backward rural community. This is the story of what it takes to keep the light burning. India's electricity grid, a complex matrix of pulsing metal that connects one of the largest countries in the world. But there are places, remote and impenetrable, which lie beyond the reach of grid electricity. These are harsh terrains, providing few opportunities and prone to social unrest. Pitched battles between Naxalites and armed forces are common in this belt. Gandhi is one such village located in the Naxal heartland of Jharkhand. Till a year ago, villagers hurried through their daily chores. Their day ended when the sun went down. Vasudev and Narayan, however, thought differently. They were convinced they could transform the lives of their people by bringing electricity to the village. They had heard that the seed of the wild currant tree contained an oil which could be extracted. the help of scientific organizations, they began extracting the oil. But the tougher task lay in convincing the villagers.
बहुत परेशानी हुआ है। गाँव वाला को समझाता था तो विश्वास ही नहीं होता था। गाँव वाला सोचता था कि होगा कैसे, यहाँ बिजली चलता है तो कोयला से चलता है, तो तुम्हारा तेल से कब चलने लगा, वो भी जंगल वाला तेल से। विश्वास ही नहीं हो रहा था किसी को।
The moment arrived. Kerosene lamps were dimmed. The Karanj oil generator roared to life and lit up every one of the 100 homes in Gardi. The seeds of change have been sown, transforming lives in this forest-dwelling community in ways they had never imagined.
पहले लोग दिन में ही काम करते थे, लेकिन जब इलेक्ट्रिसिटी आ गया तो रात में भी काम करने लगता है। हम लोग गाँव है कि वहाँ ऐसा स्थिति है कि पत्तल और दतवन से चलाता है यहाँ को लोग। बेरोजगारी भी पूरा है, प्लस साधन भी नहीं हम लोग की कुछ कर सकते हैं। हम लोग का एक ही सुविधा है, जंगल से ही दतवन पत्ते लाते हैं, उसी को सीते हैं। तो दिन में सीते थे, लेकिन जब से हम लोग इलेक्ट्रिक हो गया तो रात 9 बजे तक सी लेते हैं। अब लाइट रहता है तो
A new sense of pride takes root.
सबको अच्छा लगता है। दूसरा गांव में भी जाके बोलता है कि मेरा गांव में लैंड है। जब हम लोग यही सब फील करता है, और क्या, हम भी अब किसी से कम नहीं। मेरा गांव में वो सब कुछ आ गया जो हम आपको दिखा सकते हैं। मेरा गांव जाओ सिटी है।
A tree that until recently was cut and used as firewood is today a symbol of one village's commitment to adopting a renewable source of energy. The currant tree finally enjoys its place in the sun. Unfortunately, the tree bears fruit only once a year, and there just aren't enough trees in and around the village. To make up for the shortfall, every house in the village is pulling in 20 rupees to buy additional oil to keep the generator running. Can Gardi sustain its energy needs relying on biodiesel only? The answer lies in the neighboring state of Chhattisgarh. Nestled amidst the forest is the village of Bairak. Imposing electricity grids overshadow this tiny village. But ironically, the tribal community cannot afford the cost of this conventional source of electricity. The villagers have been encouraged by the state government and green energy corporations to grow jatrafa. Oil expellers have been set up in the village free of cost. For the villagers used to queuing up for kerosene rations, it seems close to a miracle.
मिट्टी तेल लाने के लिए कम से कम 3 घंटे का रास्ता आने जाने में समय व्यतीत हो जाते थे, और कभी भीड़ होने के कारण तेल भी नहीं मिल पाते। इस बिजली के बारे से हम सोचे नहीं थे कि हमारे गांव में ऐसा लाइट लग जाएगा ऐसे करके।
As dusk falls and the cattle are led home, a generator hums to life. Sparking off a symphony of lights in Bairak. The generator provides electricity to the village for just 4 hours every evening. But the villagers of Bairak can work longer and life seems brighter.
लाइट लगने से बच्चे लोग भी कुछ पढ़ाई कर लेते हैं और गांव वालों को रास्ता चलने में भी थोड़ा सरल है कि रोड लाइट चालू है।
But there are a few realities they will have to face that are already surfacing in the neighboring town of Bilaspur, where children ate jatropha seeds because they look temptingly like cashew nuts.
मैं बगरंडा खाई थी और मेरी सहेली लोग भी खा रहे थे तो मैं भी खाई और ना और तो मैं बेहोश हो गई तो उल्टी करी फिर अस्पताल ले गए।
The parents of the affected children have reacted angrily by hacking down the jatropha plants.
हमको कोई जानकारी नहीं था कि ये रतन जोत का झाड़ है, किसके खाने से बच्चे लोग बीमार पड़ते हैं, इसके बारे में हमको कोई नॉलेज नहीं था।
Jatropha seeds are toxic. There is a need to sensitize and caution forest-dwelling communities, especially children, about this plant. The jatropha experiment in Bairak is only a small reflection of plantations that are changing the landscape in the arid areas of Chhattisgarh. 6 lakh jatropha seedlings have been planted in just 6 months. 380 million saplings that will cover 150,000 hectares have been distributed.
जट्रोफा बेसिकली ट्रॉपिकल अमेरिकन प्लांट है, ये भारत का प्लांट नहीं है। अभी से 3-4 दशक पहले एज फेंस इसको इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था और लोगों ने इसको फेंस में लगाना शुरू किया और इसलिए लगाना शुरू किया कि बहुत ज़्यादा टॉक्सिक प्लांट है। लार्ज स्केल प्लांटेशन जो जट्रोफा का है वो एक बहुत बड़ा कर्स है।
Jatropha's ability to grow in arid conditions, minimizing the need for arable land, as well as its quick yield of 2 years, make it a viable source of biodiesel.
When we do not have any work to get from jatropha, this was treated as a weed. But now when you have got a plus point with this, that the oil can be used for running diesel engine, now it is not at all a weed now.
In Gardi too, they are switching to jatropha. 150 jatropha saplings have been planted. The villagers plan to plant 1,000 more over the next 2 years so that they don't need to look beyond their village for more oil.
और जब मेरा जट्रोफा के बारे में पता चला कि नहीं जट्रोफा में होता क्या है कि और 2 साल से फल देना चालू कर देती है, तब और तेल में सेम तेल है, तब मैंने सोचा कि जब 5-7 साल क्यों उतना इंतज़ार करें, उससे अच्छा कि जल्दी फल देने वाला पेड़ हम लगाएं।
The ecological impact of large-scale cultivation of different plant species for biodiesel is still being studied. But there is a growing consensus that indigenous plants are better suited. Even as India formulates a national biodiesel policy, a new generation in Gardi is growing up with the bright prospects that come with electricity. The villagers want to keep the spark burning, and biodiesel seems to provide a stopgap solution. Forest-dwelling communities in the adjoining state of Andhra Pradesh are doing a thriving business of successfully cultivating and extracting oil from indigenous plants. This women's cooperative has sold biodiesel to some of the first villages in India using this alternative energy source. Biodiesel could reduce carbon emissions by as much as 60% as compared to fossil fuels. And so, they have even sold carbon credits to the World Bank for growing currant trees. Today, many of these remote villages are connected to the national grid. Maybe someday, Gardi and Bairak will also be connected. But until then, their experiments with biodiesel are beacons of hope in a developing country like India, where grassroots movements are powerful catalysts for change. In a world where fuel costs continue to escalate and its environmental impact is being felt, experiments with renewable energy could pave the way for a cleaner, sustainable source of energy.
India is growing. India is urbanizing. Landscapes are being transformed. Lives and lifestyles are changing. The need for energy is increasing in every sphere. Our built environment alone consumes a third of the energy produced. And there is more to come. But stop and think. Where does all this energy come from? Most of our energy needs are met by burning fossil fuels, by coal, oil and gas that emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, causing precarious changes in the Earth's climate. We must find a way to mitigate the carbon footprint we are leaving on the planet. And the building sector must take its share of responsibility to ensure greater climate security for the generations to come. In urban India, a change is taking place slowly but surely through innovative design, alternative construction materials, use of clean energy sources, and installation of energy-efficient appliances. Green buildings are reducing dependence on energy produced from fossil fuels, setting norms of the future today. And some people are already opting for this change.
We would have to look carefully at the choices we are making, because it would define what is going to be left behind for others, and also it will be a great learning for people to know that there is a way of thinking that needs to be introduced in your lifestyle. When I went looking for a house for myself, I thought I will introduce a change into my way of living. So when I looked around, I found TZ Homes creating a change or trying to create a change. I wasn't sure how big a change it was, but I liked that there was a change.
This change is driven by a commitment to conserve energy, which then becomes an overriding objective in building design. In this apartment complex in Bangalore, possibilities to conserve energy have been widely explored, beginning with an energy-efficient open basement. A slight skew of the building from the plinth outline and green spaces that step to the central road level allows sunlight to keep the basements naturally lit throughout the day. The natural stone-pitched walls are a studied alternative to high-on concrete walls built at 1/10 the resource cost of conventional covered basements. Natural light can be harnessed for indoor lighting as well. The Bangalore chapter of the Energy Research Institute has virtually done away with the need for artificial lighting during the day.
We have this tremendous opportunity to make use of light, somehow try to bring in nature and make it part of the built environment. When you have all these natural elements at your disposal, there is no point blocking them and creating artificial environment to live in.
Passive architecture has been used in the building for an efficient and effective natural ventilation system, in spite of an extremely challenging locational context. An unhygienic open drain along the south face was taken care by opening the building towards the north. On the south, a double wall with a cavity insulates the building from the southern sun and also heats up the air within it. The foul-smelling breeze then flows over the building. At the same time, as the hot air within the cavity rises, it pulls in fresh air from the north.
Each area in the building gets 100% fresh air. That is very important. Our energy performance and comfort levels are very good during last 6 years. When it comes to TERI Bangalore building, the people are enthused to work even after the late night because of the 100% fresh air. Even people don't feel tired at all.
From design to construction, green buildings seek out possibilities to reduce embodied energy in materials and their transportation to site by using alternatives to energy-intensive materials like cement concrete, naturally sun-dried soil-stabilized blocks, laterite, compressed bamboo roofs, local varieties of stone, wood and steel walkways. The options are many. And you can even do without those ceramic tiles for the swimming pool or cement steps for the amphitheater. But can such environment-sensitive buildings face the competition? Perhaps it's time to think differently.
I'm not even talking about natural resource management, natural resource efficiency, sustainable development. None of this is needed. Just pure, basic corporate resource efficiency, if you brought to the table, what will happen is these will become innovative products. And the next 10 years, you will see a change of this face in a way that resource efficiency will be seen, will be more manifest, you know, in the building sector, which sorely needs it.
Once designed and constructed, our built environment demands energy for lighting, air conditioning, heating water, and working appliances. Innovative technologies and switching to cleaner fuels can cut carbon emissions significantly without compromises.
It really depends. If it's a thoughtfully designed space, which is designed keeping human needs in mind, which many mainstream buildings also are not, then I don't think there would be any compromise involved. Personally speaking, I don't feel I have made any compromises living in such a space. Yeah. If anything, I'm more comfortable and with a slightly clearer conscience than if I were living in any other community.
Energy conservation need not mean compromise in comfort levels. This ammonia chiller plant not only serves as a centralized refrigeration system, but also cools every bedroom in the entire apartment complex, using less than 50% the energy required by conventional air conditioners. Geothermal earth tunnel systems can also provide a possible energy-efficient cooling solution. By circulating air through pipes embedded in the earth, temperatures can be reduced to the mean temperature of the location, leveling out extreme temperatures effectively. The naturally cooled air is then circulated throughout the complex. Further reduction of temperature during hot days could be achieved with water cooled on rooftops at night. From cooling technologies to hot water systems, the message is clear. If there is a will to conserve energy, the possibilities are many, with interesting economic benefits too.
In TZ's case, we have about, well, it's not finally certified, but the figures clearly indicate that we will have about 22,000 tons. And if today's carbon online market says that in India, your your sale price or buying price will be about $11, we have got about $200,000 or about 10 million rupees approximately as a one-time carbon emission reduction credit that this organization gets.
The energy consumption of this building has been found to be at least 1/7 of the conventional buildings which are built with HVAC systems, that is air conditioning systems. Our monthly bill is about 5,000 units. Annually it comes to about 60,000 units. For a 20,000 square feet building, that is about 2,000 square meters, it works out annually about 150 rupees. This is almost 1/7 of the conventional building.
An environmentally sensitive architecture is economically viable, the technologies feasible, the goals clear, the need immediate.
Of the many challenges the world is facing today, climate change looms largest. We see some of the effects of climate change already taking place. Buildings consume more than 30% of all energy produced. And it is therefore very important that it is given due attention in terms of the manner in which energy is utilized in buildings so as to minimize their impact on climate change.
The challenges facing a more environment-sensitive architecture are many, but the journey has begun and must continue to build a green future.
I'm not very sure where this whole journey is going, but I do know that personally I would like to be involved in a process which is more thoughtful rather than less thoughtful. So for me, this is where I am when I would participate in something like this.
I think each individual should be responsible and take it forward, and that can happen only through creating awareness in the society.
To me, it's really not about convincing, it's about whether two paths meet or do not meet.
Architects need to know that this really works instead of closing all the doors and windows.
This awareness has to be increased further in order to translate some of the concepts that are already known into practical steps.
No compromise on urban comfort and convenience, yet we serve the sustainability agenda.
And I guess if people took a conscious decision and a very rapid change in some of the things we do, we could probably turn the tide a little bit to make life easier for us and for the others to come.
Winter in the upper Himalayas. Howling wind and arrested flows. If these frozen mountains are beautiful, they are also cruel to those who live here.
हमारा यहाँ 1 फुट सर्दियों को बर्फ पड़ने की वजह से ये डिपार्टमेंट का लाइन बिछा हुआ है, वो सारे कट जाते हैं ग्लेशियर की वजह से। जून जुलाई तक हमें लाइट की प्रॉब्लम होता है। किसी के घर में पेटामैक्स होता है कि कईयों के मेरे वर्ग के गरीब के पास तो वो भी सुविधा नहीं होता है सर।
3 बजे के बाद दूध सूख जाता है, दूध सूखने के बाद फिर ठंडा होता है, ठंडा होने के बाद फिर काम नहीं होता सर।
तो ये सब तकलीफ होता है ना, क्या करना।
Habitation is sparse. Snow piles and thick ice sheets on roads turn these remote villages into islands with little choice for food and little access to medical facilities. The winter also brings in long freezing nights and imposes a daily curfew of 15 to 17 hours. With transformers under the snow and the supply of electricity cut off for months, people depend on kerosene and firewood. As the flames die and fumes fill up the closed chambers, the villagers fall asleep after a very early dinner. But even after gallons of fossil fuel and tons of wood go up in smoke, winter remains an energy nightmare. And life chokes in the long nights, confined in virtual gas chambers.
ट्रेडिशनल केरोसिन ऑयल लैंप्स हैं वो यूज़ करते हैं, तो इसमें स्मोक बहुत निकलता है और ड्यूरिंग विंटर जो है लोग ज़्यादातर क्लोज्ड रूम में रहते हैं, छोटे से कमरे में क्राउडेड उसमें रहते हैं कंडीशन में। तो ये जो स्मोक है डेफिनेटली जो खासकर स्पेशली छोटे बच्चों में लंग डिजीज़ को जन्म देता है। और क्योंकि सर्दियों में ऑक्सीजन की भी कमी होती है, तो इसलिए ये जो लैंप्स हैं ऑक्सीजन को ज़्यादा बर्न करते हैं, तो ऑक्सीजन की कमी भी हो जाती है उन रूम्स में।
But in two remote villages of Lahaul and Spiti district in Himachal Pradesh, a technology innovation has offered a way out of this energy black hole. To understand the potential of this happy change, our team visits Losar and Yoche at different phases of the daunting Himalayan winter. The journeys continue across two of the mountain's most challenging passes. Rohtang is frequently blocked between November and February, and Kunzun is declared closed from October to April. If snow piles are not enough, thick sheets of ice deny any sense of control. It is like driving on a wet mirror. Only a minor skid here could take the vehicle down several hundred feet. The extreme conditions and the total isolation during the long winters have lent a stoicism to life in this cold desert, where the key to survival is not in desperate maneuvering, but in endurance. When sheer survival is a daily and seasonal gamble, life seeks unusual intensity in simple faith systems and hearty celebrations. While Spiti is predominantly Buddhist and a part of Lahaul is influenced by Hinduism, both people draw strength from a host of local deities. And when it comes to celebration, marriages are a happy excuse for week-long song and dance on endlessly flowing beer and barley brew.
For all the climatic challenges, most people here are above the poverty line, thanks to apples, seed potatoes and peas harvested in the summer. It is the long, powerless winters that force a rudimentary lifestyle. Education suffers during these dark, extended nights. Even the women, who pride themselves on their knitting skills, can do little under the kerosene lamps. Paradoxically, the answer to meeting energy demands in these remote mountain villages lies in the very elements that make life so tough here. Many households have put up solar plates offered at low cost by the government. But the typically freaky high-altitude weather means the sun is often shrouded for hours or even days together. But when the sun disappears, howling winds take over. So for round-the-clock supply of electricity, both the sun and the wind need to be tapped in tandem. An independent technology research team from a non-government organization, Pragya, has come up with a solution: a solar-wind hybrid system.
See, the sun and the wind tend to alternate in the area in the sense that when solar insolation is high, wind velocity is typically low, and when wind velocity is high, solar insolation is typically low. When you have a hybrid system that marries both these, then you ensure that there is continual generation of power. And that also means that you don't have to have a very large storage backup. It is particularly suited for the Himalayan region because you have this the sun and wind alternation in the high altitude Himalayas alone. The cost would vary from about 2 to 2.5 lakhs per kilowatt. And but then if you look at it, one needs to look at it with in a broader perspective and a broader time frame, truly speaking, because this is a system that has a life of about 20 years.
This twin energy system was installed at Losar 4 years back and has changed life for 18 households. Now, another unit is put up about 200 kilometers away at Yoche. Villagers here are excited.
Banana. B-A-N-A-N-A. Banana. Kela. Grapes.
Not the big. B-I-G. Kate. Donkey. D-O-N. सोलर से बहुत फायदा हो जाएगा जी बच्चों को पढ़ने। अभी तो अभी लाइट चले गई तो फिर अंधेरा ही है नहीं, कभी का महीना 2 महीना नहीं रहते, तो हम उसमें कैंडल या वही जलाते जी। अभी तो इस टावर से बहुत फायदा हो गया, हमें परमानेंट हमें बिजली उपलब्ध हो गई। इससे तो बच्चों के लिए फायदा और आम जनता के लिए, हमारे गाँव के वासियों के लिए फायदा है।
बिजली आएगी तो आसान होता है ना, बड़ा अच्छा होता है ना, वो धूप के साथ आना बिजली। पहले तो अंदर अंदर क्या करना है, बर्फ फेंकना, बर्फ आएगा था वो घास देना, पानी लेना, खाना बनाना। 7 दिन 8 दिन ऐसा होता है ना, हफ्ता से और या और आएगा ना, तो क्या करना।
बिजली तो खत्म है यहाँ, कोई लेट नहीं है, लैंप से जला के बैठते हैं हम। कुछ मीटिंग होगा करेगा, कुछ बैठेगा। अब लेट नहीं तो कैसे अंधेरे में कौन बैठेगा यहाँ। जनवरी फरवरी में मामा बिजली काट जाती हैं तो बच्चे लोग हमारे लंप से पढ़ाए जाते हैं, उसके बाद यहाँ आना जाना बंद हो जाते हैं सबके लिए। अभी ये पवन चल लगे तो सर्दी पूरा हमारा मई तक लेट आ जाएगा, उसके बाद सब ठीक हो जाएगा।
Losar's transformation justifies Yoche's hope.
आसानी होगी जब, तो पहले तो हमारे कहाँ जी, पहले ज़माने में तो बिल्कुल केरोसिन भी नहीं होते जी, तो होते हैं जी जो हमारे सरसों अपना यही सरसों उगाते हैं जी, उसी से निकाल के तेल से फिर बत्ती जला डाल के फिर छोटा जैसे ये होता है जी कोयले जैसे ना, उसी में से करते हैं पहले। जब छोटे थे हमें, जब खुद 5वीं में पढ़ते थे ना जी, उस टाइम तो हमें बस वो लैंप से ही गुजार करते हैं जी पढ़ाई में ना। तो फिर वो लैंप ख़त्म हो जाएगा तो फिर बंद हो गए, फिर अंदर धुआं भी हो जाना जी, बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है जी उस टाइम। तो
मेरे घर वो वाला है, मैं रात को पढ़ाई करता हूँ और कभी कभी लाइट चला जाता है। फिर इस पंखे की सहायता से आजकल बहुत अच्छा हो रहा है, क्योंकि बिना लाइट के हमें उस लैंप से पढ़ना पड़ता है। जब बहुत देर के बाद कमरा धुआं से भर जाता है और हमें पढ़ने में आंखें ख़राब हो जाता है और पढ़ने में मुश्किल होता है।
जो सर्दी का रात लंबा होता है, लेडीज लोग उससे शॉल बना सकते हैं, क्या कहते हैं, पटू बना सकते हैं, गलीचा बना सकते हैं, जुराब बना सकते हैं।
6 बजे जो देते हैं ना, 6 बजे को देते हैं, फिर 10-11 बजे तक।
It serves the entire village in all its needs. 2 advantages. One is the entire village, including the poorest of the poor who cannot otherwise access such technologies, can get the benefits of this. And the second is that when maintenance is required, again it does not depend on the smaller capacity of an individual household, but the entire village.
Along with the hybrid system, another simple, clean technology has helped significantly reduce the dependence on firewood here. While photoelectric plates actively harness solar energy to generate power, passive solar heating uses the same energy to keep the rooms warm and minimizes energy requirement for artificial heating.
इस छेद से जो है हीट जो अंदर आते हैं, बाहर जो है शीशे लगे, ये सोलर सिस्टम है। और यहाँ जो हमारे गांव के जो सर्दियों में बिल्ला होते हैं, और यहाँ जो है खड्डी खुड्डी और जैसे गलीचा गुलाचा बनाना हो, वो यही बनाने आते हैं।
I think passive heating is a very good idea, and now I understand there is a government policy to encourage building of such homes.
Losar and Yoche have found an answer to their energy crisis. But thousands of villages scattered along the highest fringes of the Himalayas still painstakingly stock up kerosene and firewood to get through the long freezing nights.
The amount of money which, for instance, goes into either subsidizing transport of fuel wood to these areas, or in afforestation, or in other such programs, which have not so far really yielded much.
And with each passing winter, thin patches of mountain green get thinner still, and lungs gather lantern soot inside closed, dimly lit rooms. For these prisoners of the snow, the solar wind hybrid system is not just an energy solution, but the promise of life.
जो दूसरा जो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पहुंचाना जो रिमोट विलेजेस में इज़ वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट। तो यहाँ पे विंडी कंडीशंस हैं, तो उस सूरत में ये जो कन्वेंशनल विंड मिल्स वगैरह हैं बहुत अच्छे साबित हो सकते हैं रिमोट विलेजेस में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पावर के लिए। और लाइटिंग अगर प्रॉपर हो जाए, तो अगर ये लैंप्स अगर यूज़ ना हो, तो हेल्थ पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बहुत अच्छा प्रभाव दे सकते हैं।
Sometimes nature speaks to us in riddles. If nature tests us, nature also leaves answers hidden in her elements. The solar wind hybrid technology has cracked one such puzzle. If adopted all along the upper Himalayas, this twin energy solution can save and make thousands of lives better and ensure a cleaner, greener tomorrow.
For millions of years since the earth has formed, it has spewed hot water and steam. Where the earth's crust is weak, water heated from hot magma deep in the earth's bowels, rises up, creating natural wonders, geysers, hot springs, and thermal pools. This heat from the earth is called geothermal energy. It is a clean and renewable source of energy. It is winters in Leh, a major tourist destination located in the high-altitude cold desert of Ladakh in India. Temperatures are a freezing 15 degrees Celsius below zero. For the 100,000 odd residents of Ladakh, 5 months of winter is grueling. Leh gets electricity only for a few hours every day from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. For heat and comfort, they have few options. A family-run guest house uses an innovative heater running on LPG, the common cooking gas.
यहाँ बिजली की काफ़ी किल्लत है। बिजली सिर्फ शाम को ही आती है 5 घंटे, तो हम LPG का ये हीटर यूज़ करते हैं।
And in rural areas, far from the city, families use wood and dung to keep the fires burning and heat their homes.
हाँ, ये छत्ता पे क्या है, गोबर और लकड़ी यूज़ करते हैं, जिससे खाना भी बनता है, चाय भी बनता है और कमरा भी गर्म हो जाता है जी।
As the sun disappears behind the mountains, a loud roar breaks the evening silence. Eight generators running on diesel and belching out huge plumes of smoke power the city. Besides polluting the pristine environment of the Himalayas, this contributes 1,800 tons of carbon dioxide emissions annually.
For civilian population in District Leh, the diesel consumption for the last year, that is 6-7, it worked out to around 20 lakh liters. So that's enormous amount. And at the same time, we have huge establishments of army, of paramilitary forces, of Air Force. So all they meet up the power from their own resources, but all that comes from the diesel generation only.
A possible solution to Leh's power woes and smog-filled air lies in the bubbling waters of Jumatang.
Here I am sitting next to the bank of Indus, boiling eggs in a thermal spring in the month of December. That's the beauty of geothermal energy. This is the Earth's heat trapped in Earth's balls. It comes to the surface in the form of thermal springs or geysers. It's one of the oldest forms of energy available to mankind. Now this energy is being used by ancient civilization for heating homes, for therapeutic uses, and for boiling food. This energy can be put to greater use than just boiling eggs.
A good example of greater use that India can emulate comes from the land of fire and ice. Iceland endures a long and harsh winter, but is blessed with vast geothermal resources. Situated on the mid-Atlantic ridge, Iceland is a region of high volcanic activity, steaming vents, geysers, and hot springs. It uses this geothermal energy to generate about a quarter of its electricity.
The geothermal water or the energy in Iceland is used in various ways. Heating homes, for swimming pools, outdoor swimming pools, for the industry like the greenhouse industry, fish drying facility, lumber drying facilities. So geothermal steam is a reliable source of energy.
India too has a few promising sites that can be tapped for geothermal energy. The Puga Valley, a few hours drive from Leh, is one such site. Puga lies in the Himalayan geothermal belt, a region of high tectonic activity where two continental plates collide. Most geothermal sites exist in such places. Along such areas, and where porous rock exists beneath impermeable rock, over centuries, water seeps in and heats up from the magma present further below, thus creating a geothermal reservoir. Professor Chandrasekharam, a geothermal energy expert, has been studying the hot springs here. The temperature of the rising waters is hot enough to scald a person.
We are in Puga geothermal field. This field has several thermal springs like this, whose temperature is 87 degrees Celsius. This is the boiling point of water at this elevation. This gives a good indication that we have a very good thermal reservoir here, which can be used for producing power, like what has been done in Tibet and China.
To estimate a geothermal reservoir's potential for power generation, it is vital to estimate the temperature of the hot waters deep in the reservoir. Various minerals and chemical elements dissolve in water at varying temperatures. By doing a geochemical analysis of the water sample from Puga hot spring in the lab, Professor Chandrasekharam can estimate the temperatures of the water deep in the earth. A geothermal power plant has a very low carbon footprint with negligible carbon dioxide emissions. Unlike a fossil fuel power plant, it mainly produces steam. This power plant in Iceland generates 80 megawatts of power. A network of pipes brings hot water and steam from production wells in the area to the plant. The Swatsengi power plant was the first geothermal power plant in the world to use the resulting hot waters for district heating.
Here we have a symbol of hot rock chamber. The temperature here is 1 kilometer down is about 242 degrees centigrade. The brine mixture of steam and seawater comes up here into a high pressure separator where you separate the steam from the seawater, and then the steam goes on here, goes through the turbine and forces it to make electricity about 30 megawatts.
In addition to generating power and heating homes, the Swatsengi power plant releases the cooled down geothermal waters to a thermal spa. In Puga, a power plant similar to the one in Iceland is planned. The binary power plant will use geothermal hot waters extracted from 2 kilometers beneath the earth using a production well. This hot water will be transferred to a heat exchanger. At the same time, a working fluid, an organic liquid with low boiling temperature, will be passed through the heat exchanger. The working fluid will turn into vapors, and the force of expanding vapors will turn the turbines to power the generators and produce electricity. The vapors will then be condensed back to liquid to start the process again. The geothermal waters will be re-injected back into the reservoir.
So the data we collected gives an indication that the thermal reservoir extends to about 3 square kilometers, which is located at a depth of about 2 kilometers, and the temperature is more than 250 degrees Celsius. And with this database, we estimated that we could generate more than 250 megawatts of power in this area actually.
Professor Chandrasekharam's research shows several places in India that are ideal for producing geothermal power. He estimates that these sites could provide 10,000 megawatts of clean, renewable energy. The technology for harnessing geothermal energy is now well established.
There is a huge untapped heat source in the earth. And there is today a lot of knowledge around the earth about how to harness, how to access this heat source. Here in Iceland, in Italy, in the States, in many, many countries. So it is time for people to come together and go after the heat embedded in the earth.
If Professor Chandrasekharam and his team can replicate the success of Iceland in Puga, the people of Leh and the entire state can hope to have a reliable and clean source of power. There is a form of geothermal energy that occurs worldwide, even where there are no hot springs or geysers. The earth absorbs and retains the sun's heat. As a result, temperatures just below the earth remain constant throughout the year at around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. This fact has an interesting application. It can be utilized for efficient air conditioning. Mr. Chandrasekhar from Visakhapatnam is a pioneer in installing geothermal air conditioning systems. He did his first installation in the house of Mr. Zutshi. In a geothermal air conditioning system, like the one in Mr. Zutshi's house, the earth is used as a heat source or a heat sink. The system comprises of a geo-exchange heat pump, a ground loop, a hydronic pump to circulate water through the ground loop and ducts. Like a normal air conditioner, the geo-exchange heat pump installed in the house extracts heat from the house in the summers. But instead of expelling the heat to the air outside, it expels the heat into the earth through water circulating in a closed ground loop, a network of pipes buried a few feet under the ground. Temperatures being far lower under the ground than outside air in summers, it makes for efficient heat flow rates and hence lower power consumption. In the winters, the process is reversed to heat the home.
I wish more people would put up geothermal installations, especially in hot and humid areas in India, and there is a lot of that in India, in banks, residential complexes, and all those places which have enough land to put the underground piping in. It really would make a lot of difference to India's energy bill, because geothermal air conditioning is 60% more efficient than the normal air conditioning.
Recently, Mr. Chandrasekhar has installed such a system in a private college in Visakhapatnam.
We calculated we needed around 30 tons of air conditioning for a conventional air conditioner, but here we've installed only 2 machines which are 7 tons and 8 tons. So we are actually running the whole facility here with 15 tons.
Mr. Chandrasekhar is passionate about his work. He has already done a few installations and many more are in the pipeline.
Geothermal air conditioning systems can be done in any part of the world. I've done it successfully in India. I've done it in Hyderabad, I've done it in Bangalore, I've done it in Visakhapatnam, and I've done it in Gurgaon. 3 of them have been residential installations and 1 a commercial one.
To ensure climate security, we have to make renewable energy work for us, at the same time reducing our energy consumption. Geothermal energy is one of the many options that we should look to exploit in the coming years. The future lies beneath our feet.
There is no doubt that we need to actively invest in energy efficient solutions in our everyday lives if we are to build a sustainable future. The answer is, of course, moving to a low carbon economy. We need to invest in solutions like insulating homes, making cars more fuel efficient, and using less electricity. We also need to look at a post-oil transport system. Biofuels will play an important part if produced sustainably. Failure to address problems of scarcity and high prices of fuel, food and water will mean a re-emergence of traditional paradigms of competitiveness and practice of power politics between nations. But if we succeed in finding new and innovative ways to meet the growing demand for natural resources, cooperation and collaboration will win out.